the actual stuff on the field over the weekend, let's start with yesterday. I mentioned this a little bit in 3 outs, but I see a lot of angst today about Zach Phillips. I see a lot of question marks about Zach Phillips, and I didn't think stay with me through this whole thing. I didn't think his start was as bad as maybe it got portrayed. I thought of the first inning, he gets out of that thing without any errors. He probably gets to settle into a rhythm a little bit, probably gets the momentum. I think this thing looks completely different. Now, in saying that, he did not handle the adversity very well. Some of that his own doing on the error at first base. But it's his first start. We've always talked about JUCO guys kind of acting like freshmen from a standpoint of transitions and what they experience emotionally early in the season and all these different things. So I think Phillips was dealing with some of that. I did not notice maybe some of the confidence he'd had in inter-squads. I think he was a little freaked out. And then when you have the error by Greg Kessinger, you have his own error and it leads to a run. He just kind of spiraled. Now here's the deal, though. We mentioned golf a second ago. To steal a golf term, you've got to manage your misses as a starting pitcher. So when things don't go your way, you've got to figure out a way to turn that back around. You've got to figure out a way to flip that back. And he wasn't able to do that. It really kind of spiraled on him after that. I didn't think his body language was great. I thought the fastball was a tick down velocity-wise. And then Wright State made him pay. Coming into the week, we talked about how last season Wright State was top 10 of the country in runs scored per game. Friday night, Will Etheridge really shut them down and held them to nothing. But they got a lot of big hits on Saturday. They did a lot of good things. They took advantage of Ole Miss. Every time Zach Phillips missed with a pitch, Wright State pounded it. So, look, he's going to get a start again next week. I kind of want to see him on the road. I want to see what a second start looks like. But for him, it's not even necessarily about the way it started or the score or anything else. It's about, hey, when you get that runner on, how do you get out of it? When you get 2 runners on, how do you get out of it? They score a run, how do you not let it turn into a 4 or 5 run inning, which he didn't do. He gave up 3 doubles over the course of yesterday's start. So those are the things to avoid. I just thought that he just didn't have any confidence once things started turning badly. And for a first start, I'm going to kind of let that go. Not going to make a big deal out of it. I've seen him throw inter-squads. I know he's talented, so we'll see what it brings. Plus, without Houston Roth for sure back, Mike Bianco did say on Friday night Houston was ahead of schedule. He had thrown 60 foot, 6 inches. So I think we're close to Roth jumping back into the mix. But until that's the case, I think they're kind of not stuck because I've got some confidence in Phillips as he moves forward. But I think they're pretty settled with these 3 guys. And then, just kind of back to Etheridge. He was everything you wanted him to be. He has a 29-pitch inning, which really wasn't much of his doing against Wright State in the first inning on Friday night. Comes back to still keep him to, I think, 68 pitches through 5 or something like that. He was excellent getting, kind of like, what Phillips didn't do. It's what Etheridge did do. He found a way to get that pitch count back down, balance it back out, and give his team a chance to win. So I thought he was very, very impressive. And then the 2 bright spots on Saturday from a pitching standpoint is, number 1, Max Chope. He comes in, gives you a career-long outing, just filled it up. That's what he did last year as a freshman. He throws strikes. He keeps you in the game. So that was good to see because he's going to be a bridge guy. He's going to be somebody that's got to bridge some of these things for Ole Miss in that bullpen. He's going to be a valuable piece. And then, again, it's not there yet. It's not. He's still kind of flying open. The mechanics could use a little work. But Caleb Hill has got some serious stuff. He was 93, 94 from the left side in that cold weather on Saturday afternoon. I know he gave up a big hit that ended up being an even bigger hit when Ole Miss does get the tying run to the plate in the 9th. But Caleb Hill is going to be very, very good down the line, and for the most part, I was pretty impressed with what I saw out of him on Saturday. So questions, and I'll run through those a little bit. I do not expect to see a game on Tuesday night. Just looking at the weather, I mean, I'm far from a weatherman, but yeah, it does not look good. Tuesday looks like the worst day of the coming week, so I think that'll be rescheduled. Whereas with Wright State, obviously they're not going to play Wright State in a makeup game. Wright State's not going to come back down here. So they're going to have to find a game somewhere else from a standpoint of somebody else who's had to rain out, somebody else who's not at that 56 game limit. Find a time to play them, make up the game wherever you can. With Arkansas State, if it gets canceled, they'll just play it some other time. Those 2 programs have a great relationship. That will not be a problem to make that game up. So they'll be fine from an Arkansas State standpoint. But I highly doubt it is on. It is highly doubtful that it's on Tuesday. It's not Mardi Gras, but it's the carnival season is upon us. Like Fat Tuesday's not next Tuesday, but we're in carnival season. There's tons of parades in New Orleans this coming weekend. I would look at a map if I were you. If you're headed down for the weekend for Ole Miss and Tulane, look at a map, see where all these parades are going, see where the carnivals and everything is going on, because you could get caught in some traffic at certain times of the weekend. especially on Friday night. I think there's one that's kind of down around Tulane somewhere. I was told when I was trying to figure out maybe whether to work at the park or get out of there, get back to the hotel or whatever. So if you're headed down, check all that stuff because there's a lot of stuff going on in New Orleans this weekend between baseball, other sporting events, concerts, and then Mardi Gras, as you mentioned. Um, if Phillips doesn't work on Saturday and Roth becomes the guy, how much does that impact the bullpen? Well, I mean a lot because it takes Roth out of it. Now it puts Phillips into it, and I am kind of curious what Phillips would look like from a maxed out roll out of the bullpen. Because I do think you got to have Phillips or Hill really come on and be a guy if you move Roth into the rotation. I think those two left-handers, getting one of them to come in and be very, very consistent is critical. So that's big for Ole Miss. We'll just see. I mean, as of right now, I still think Roth can be a midweek dynamo. I think he can be excellent out of the kind of the back half of the bullpen, we'll say, because we haven't even seen Caracci. He's obviously the closer. But I do think that that's something to kind of watch as they keep going because you've got to have something out of Phillips. For now, it's a starter. It's going to be the starter for a little while. I don't see a quick hook there whatsoever. But down the road, I think if that did happen, you would move him to the bullpen and hope that he could max out the fastball a little more. You know, he doesn't need all three pitches because he's kind of that three-pitch mix guy. But he's probably a reliever at the next level anyway. I know several scouts like him out of the bullpen at the pro level. There is a stream for Tulane. I'll get that information, put it on the message board. I'm not sure what it is. But, yeah, they've always had a stream that, for the most part, stayed active. You know, a lot of times when Ole Miss goes on the road at I'd say non-Power 5 programs, but, I mean, Tulane's in the American. They do a pretty good job with baseball for the most part. The streams kind of crash. But, best I recall, Tulane did a pretty good job with making that okay last time. I will not be at the Rebel meeting in Jackson tomorrow night. Won't be there. That one in Cleveland the other night might be the only one I attend. I know the one in Oxford is this coming Saturday while I'm in New Orleans, and I don't see the schedule really working out for another one. So I know I will not be in Jackson tomorrow night for sure. I know that. Thoughts on Taylor Broadway coming in out of the bullpen instead of Chofie or anyone else? I'm a little. I don't want to say Mike was throwing in the towel because that's not right, but I am wondering had the score been a little closer at that point or the situation looked a little better for Ole Miss at the time, if you would have seen Chofie come in first. I think Mike wanted to bring somebody else in, see kind of what happened offensively, see where that thing went from a score standpoint, and then go from there. And then after they get behind even more, he goes to Chofie just because, frankly, at that point you kind of needed to not be overly embarrassing. It was 8-0 at the time, and it looked pretty dire at the moment. Optimal lineup. I knew I was going to get this question. By the way, Broadway, I mean, they're going to use him some, but I don't think he is necessarily fitting into that top 2 or 3 arm spot out of the bullpen. I know it happened over the weekend, but I think with a healthy Roth and some other things, we haven't seen Nikhazy yet either. I think had they played Baseball Tuesday and Roth wouldn't start, or if they do play Baseball Tuesday and Roth doesn't start, it's Nikhazy. So let's let this thing kind of run out for a week or two before we really start talking about some of those roles other than the ones that we absolutely know going into the season. So optimal lineup, sorry, back to that. I see the question on the message board. I've been thinking about it the last hour or two because it kind of goes against my nature because usually I get kind of stat heavy with a lot of stuff analytically with college baseball, but I'm not as worried about the lineup from exactly where a guy is. I think it's more about sections than necessarily 1 versus 2, 5 versus 6 or whatever. I would hit Dillard second. I know he's the one everybody else is talking about. I would hit him second. It's going to get him a little more at bats. I don't mind him leading off, but I don't see any way Mike Bianco does that. I just really don't. I would hit him second. And this team doesn't have a leadoff hitter that is traditional. This team doesn't necessarily have a leadoff hitter, even other than Dillard, that fits things analytically. So I don't mind Olenek or Kessinger leading off. It doesn't really bug me. But I do think this lineup would look a little different if you move just Dillard 1-2 spots up into that 2 hole. I think putting Dillard in front of Keenan at 2-3 would be an interesting move versus kind of one of the things we've seen so far. But again, we're 2 games in. I'll give it some benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I would kind of like some sort of Dillard, Keenan, move Kessinger back around a little bit, something like that. I don't care how Keenan handles the bat; he's going to hit. So I'm not worried about some of that situational stuff. And college baseball kind of gets into another question on the message board about analytics, and you've got to factor them in. They hired Chris Godoris. He was with the analytical department for the Phillies for a long time. I know they're more into that, but Mike's a still pretty traditional manager, best I can tell. He's not one to play around with a lot of sabermetrics and different things. And here's the problem with college baseball and sabermetrics is sample size. We're only playing 56 games for the regular season. You look at, take Olenek, for example, last year. He hits 400 for a lot of the season. Well, that lasted about the time of a really, really hot streak in Major League Baseball, just part of the season. Instead, you become an All-American because it goes for most of a 56-game regular season. So from a sample size standpoint, you don't necessarily have time to let things average out. It's where maybe you don't value defense as high in college baseball as you would professional baseball. It's where, we can look at BABIP, but when we do that, batting average on balls in play, basically telling how lucky someone is, you've got to do that over multiple seasons. Austin Anderson was the guy a few years ago where we always talked about, he's been unlucky, he's going to break out. And he did, but it took sort of to his senior year for enough at-bats to calculate for you to know there was going to be some regression back up or down depending on what was going on. So sample size is the big thing, and just the game is different. It's why in the major leagues nobody bunts. It's, hey, this doesn't make sense. Well, in college baseball, I still don't really agree with bunting in a lot of situations, but you're going to see it a lot more simply because defenders don't always make plays. You have a much higher chance of someone screwing up in college than you do professional baseball, so it sort of messes up so many things analytically. It's just a different game. You can take it, you should examine it, you should look at it, figure out where it can help you, but I don't know that college baseball has been using sabermetrics and analytics to this extent long enough for us to understand what the true baselines are for a lot of these stats versus the professional game. It's just different. I think everybody's still learning. I think everybody's still trying to figure it out, but comparatively to Major League Baseball, college baseball is still incredibly traditional. We're just not at that point yet with it. Got to protect Dillard from getting walked all the time. Put Keenan behind him. That would be my best advice. I think that would be the way to go. But now Dillard's going to walk because Dillard has a really good eye. I mean, I wrote about this yesterday. He's been textbook so far this season. He's elevating the bad pitches. He's elevating the ball when he hits it, but he's not chasing anything. He's taking walks. Both his years at Ole Miss, Thomas Dillard has led the team in walk percentage. He's just going to walk because pitchers aren't going to throw him the ball over the plate. So some of that is whatever. He said he means intentionally now. Fair enough. Yeah, and I think you do that with Keenan. I like Tyler Keenan. I know he had a terrible day yesterday. He's going to hit like 350, 370 this season. He's going to be outstanding. So I think I would move him behind Dillard and then sort of just kind of let it fall from there. I think Mike still has some interesting moves on his hands from a standpoint of what to do. Carl Gendel was going to get the start today. I wanted to see that a lot, just see what it looked like defensively, see if some of that summer stuff carried over because, Mike's got to, again, when we talk about 56 games, you got to figure the right lineup out, but then you got to give all these guys that you sort of believe in and trust enough at-bats to get some semblance of a sample size to know what you have. And that's what he's trying to get right now with Elko, with Gendel, trying to figure out how to mess with Servideo and Adams both. Because, yesterday, Jacob Adams, I didn't really write about him. He had 2 hits. He made plays defensively. He was fine. We know Servideo is going to be an elite defender. So just figuring out how to get them on the field is an interesting thing. And it's kind of like why, as time goes, especially if, say, Elko continues to falter, again, 2 games. We're just speaking because that's all we have to go on. I don't think he's going to falter. But if he did, I would at least consider the whole Servideo to the outfield thing because I think Adams is going to get on base. He was 3rd on the team in on-base percentage last year, and it gives you another option there. So, yeah, Mike's got to tinker with this thing really for, I'd say, 3 weeks. I'd say 3 to 4 weeks of, especially with the rainouts now, of playing with this thing, figuring out who goes where defensively, and then figuring out how to get them in the lineup. Tim Elko was pressing a little bit, in my opinion. I thought the best evidence of that was yesterday when he gets 3-0, gets the green light, and just swings at a bad pitch. He should have gone to first base. I think it would have loaded the bases at a time. It would give an Ole Miss a chance to kind of get back in the game at that moment. Instead, he hits the ball off the end of the bat. He gets out off that 3-0 count, and it just looks like, it's kind of when the lights have come on. I think, you're talking about a guy who had a good bit of pressure coming in last season. He was the highest-ranked recruit in that class. He was a guy that kind of got overshadowed at that point by Tyler Keenan, the way Keenan took off because they were both competing for playing time at the same position there at third base. And then he comes back this year. He's in much better shape. He had a good summer after a slow start, had a good fall, had a good early spring, and then first 2 games has just not really looked comfortable. So I think you got to give him at-bats, though, because the talent's there, the ability's there. We've seen it all practice. And I don't think he's one of those guys that just is never going to make it work with the lights on. There's nothing about that with his game that I expect to last long term. So when he's good, he's good at everything. I mean, he is a power hitter that has definite gap power that can also hit the ball out of the yard. So Yeah, no, you've got to give Elko a chance to get comfortable because if he does, I think he's another dynamic guy in this lineup, and Ole Miss is going to have to hit some wins this year. I mean, look, the pitching's not bad, but I do think it's a bit of a work in progress. So this thing's about offense right now. This thing's about the lineup, especially early in the year when you can punish some pitching before it sort of settles in. This is Ole Miss's offense is going to have to carry this team. Why is Fitz not batting more instead of Cockrell? I don't know that it's necessarily more instead of Cockrell, but yeah, I mean, I think Fitzsimmons is going to get more at bats than last season. I maybe asked this question on the chat the other night. He got 30 at bats last year, 30 plate appearances. It's going to be above that. He's going to get some more opportunities. I'd like to see what he could do, but there is some sort of I don't know if it's trust issues or what. There's something that has kept Mike from doing that, and a lot of that right now is just he believes so highly in Chase Cockrell. That's his guy. That's the guy that he wants taking as many DH at bats as possible, and that's the reason that we're kind of are right now with what it is. Anything stick out in the SEC over a weekend? I thought LSU just coming back and kind of staying at it the way they did was kind of interesting. They got some guys in new roles. Their pitching, I think, has some question marks in it. I know I'm one of the only ones. I know that it's one of those deals where everybody's so high on them. But I think as the competition gets better, they've got to figure their pitching out a little bit. And I thought it was big that they were able to just keep battling away offensively and kind of keep it rolling, get to 3-0 on the week, and have the big weekend versus the alternative. I saw Vanderbilt came back down to earth today, to be expected. And then I did watch a little bit of Florida and Long Beach throughout the weekend. The Gators are really, really good. The Dirtbags are pretty average. Series Ole Miss definitely should win in 2 weeks. They play that different brand of baseball, but otherwise, I'm just not seeing much out of Long Beach State. That looks like a rebuilding job out on the West Coast for them. State has beer showers. Yeah, that is true. We'll talk about it on the podcast in the morning. I'm gonna save most of that to get Mr. McCready in the game on the beer shower thing, but that definitely will be a topic in the morning. The Mississippi State administration taking the time to talk about beer showers is one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time. So we'll get into that in the morning. I enjoyed a lot of that. Let's see. Keep throwing anything you got at me. We still got a few minutes here. No huge rush. Let's see. Someone says, does anyone notice Dom has not won a tip all year? I don't think I've seen but one tip all year, and that was the game I was at, so I can't really comment on that. Let's see. We talked about the other night, back to Etheridge for just one second. We talked about the other night how I wanted to see how he kind of mixed in his secondary stuff. Didn't rely on it so much that he could actually go after batters, and I thought he really did that. I thought that was a key for him because in the past he's had a tendency to nibble. He's even though it's been in relief a lot of times, kind of run his pitch count up, has done some things that I didn't like if he was to be a Friday night guy or be a starter, especially as Ole Miss is trying to fill out some of these bullpen roles. And I thought on Friday after that first inning, he's attacked, he got ahead, he had so many first pitch fastballs, and he just kind of challenged them in the right way. It was challenging them, but it was not making mistakes. It was staying in the right quadrant, and then it was mixing in the other pitches in a way that really did what they needed to do. Do I think Bianco will regret not recruiting his son? No, look. Mike made that decision a long time ago. We've talked about it. I mean, I guess I was the first person to write the story. I didn't know it at the time. He called me over. We discussed it. We went through why he's doing it, and he just wanted Drew and Ben and Sam, for that matter, who's committed to ULL now. Just wanted them to not have to feel like they had to be the coach's kid. Thought that in the locker room it was a different situation. And the just around the team, you don't know how the players treat these guys differently. And look, there have been situations where it's worked. I mean, Kyle Serrano goes to Tennessee, plays for Dave. The team wasn't very good, but the career went well. And then you see it the other way. I mean, you saw it at Ole Miss in the '90s with J.T. Harrison. It didn't go well under Pat Harrison. And while as Ole Miss fans are all talking about, hey, why not here, why not this, whatever. Well, Mike did go to LSU. I think in a lot of ways, Drew probably grew up wanting to go to LSU, wanting to wear his dad's number as he is. He's wearing number 5. So No, I mean when it's your kid and he's happy, I don't think you regret that no matter what's going on with your occupation. Now look, is Drew Bianco good enough to play for Ole Miss just in general? Yeah. Would he start on this team? I don't think so because he's not starting over Ken. He's not starting over Zabowski. Cockrell's hit the ball really, really well as the DH. So at this moment, I don't think he necessarily fits into this best nine. So I think it's premature to necessarily even have this conversation right now. More likely that Hill is in the rotation next year or is the closer next year. I think he's in the rotation next year. I think he's going to be outstanding as a starting pitcher at Ole Miss before this thing's over. I think he can. We'll see how he holds velocity. We really haven't seen that yet. I was about to misspeak. We have not seen that yet, so I may need to see that determination. But I think he's a starter. I think that the secondary stuff can develop, and I think you're looking at a Hoagland, Heel, Nikhazy type rotation for 1 and maybe 2 years. That's incredibly dynamic. That's the thing. Ole Miss does lose a good bit after this year, but from a pitching standpoint, because just how good some of these young guys are, I really like that rotation in the coming years, and I think you could get 2/3 of that this year. If you told me that before the end of the year there was some semblance of a Hoagland, Nikhazy pairing in the starting rotation, maybe along with Etheridge, I'd believe you. And then I think Hill could also maybe run into some midweek starts as well down the year if some things shake out the way that I just think they might from a niche standpoint, how the pitching stuff might shake out as the year goes on. So, yeah, I think you could have a role for Hill later in the year, and then I definitely think you could have a role for him next year as a starter. He's that good. He's dynamic to me. I mean, I know Hoagland was a first-round pick, but Nikhazy from a college standpoint can be very, very productive very quickly, and then Hill might just have more stuff than either one of them. He's tremendous. So let's see. I have not heard any more talk about expanding left field or right field. I'll take it back. I've heard it in general. I have no idea what any of the plans are or what any of the current thoughts are on how quickly they need to get that done. I have no idea there, so I'm not sure. Let's see, anything else we got where we're going? Tulane, by the way, is 3-0. They beat George Washington 3 times over the weekend. The first 2 were by 1 run, and then they 10-runned them in the finale, which tells us nothing. I mean, we have no idea. That there's nothing to base that off of. I think they're a quality, decent program, but nothing that is going to be of extra benefit to Ole Miss later in the year. And, speaking of Wright State, I mean, I saw a lot of gnashing of teeth because it's a directional school or whatever from Ohio. They're going to finish 50 to 80 probably in the RPI. Wright State's not hurting you. I mean, it's frustrating for Ole Miss because they didn't get the game in, because they didn't win the series, and just kind of the way the weekend kind of went. But from a resume standpoint, the Wright State thing did nothing whatsoever negative to Ole Miss. Just nothing. How thankful should we be that State didn't end up with Carter Stewart? The SEC should probably be pretty happy that Carter Stewart and JT Ginn are not both Mississippi State Bulldogs. There's no doubt about that. Did Mike leave Etheridge in too long? How to blister his heel? From the healing standpoint, they really just kind of take time, although it popped up in the 4th inning. Will told us on Friday night that blister hit him around the 4th. He still pitched 2 more innings with it, and it wasn't getting worse until the weather picked up. When it started raining heavier, when the weather got worse, is when that blister kind of got some moisture in it, and it got a little worse as well. And then Mike got him out of there pretty quick after that. They didn't play around with it. I've been given no indication that it's severe. I think he'll be on the mound Friday against Tulane. And I know they can linger a little bit, but I'm not expecting that to be the case. I think Will be fine on Friday, best I can tell. But, yeah, he pitched with it for 2 innings, so it didn't just pop up immediately and cause a big problem. He was staying in the game. He was still locating. It was not causing any issue toward his performance whatsoever. Do I think the Florida game comes back to bite? I'm assuming the basketball team. Not if they take care of business. I mean, they get to 11, they're definitely in good shape for the SEC, for the NCAA tournament. I think they're probably still in good shape at 10. So, yeah, they just got to take care of business. I mean, that Florida game would end all doubt right now, period, would be done. And it might affect seeding because that'd be another road win, another whatever. But, nah, I mean, it's no big deal. Do they move Hoagland up to Saturday since he didn't pitch today? No, I think they'll stay with the rotation. Now, I think they like the freshman on Sunday for whatever reason. I've been told that, so I've been given no indication that they're going to move him up. I think they'll stay with everything for Etheridge, Phillips again, and then Hoagland on Sunday. I don't expect a change. I'll ask Mike just because why not? But no, I don't think so. I've heard nothing on Jordan Fowler. I'm still assuming he's going to get some bullpen innings. I mean, I guess Mike could really, really surprise me and start him Tuesday against Arkansas State if something happened, but I think that's Doug Nikhazy if Houston Roth is not healthy, or Houston Roth if he is healthy. I mean, it's a little weird, I'll be honest, and maybe we've done a bad job with this, but I guess we've seen Fowler. We saw him in the, or at least the stats in the summer. He did not perform well. We saw him in the fall not do very well. And then he's been okay this spring, but I've not really not heard his name. He's not been someone that has been mentioned as a concrete role for Ole Miss so far this season, and it's crazy because a guy that finished the year, started that regional final game, and pitched pretty dang good there late in the year and in the postseason to just fall off like this. And I was kind of giving every benefit of the doubt. I thought, well, he's just working on something in the summer, kind of treating it like spring training, no big deal. Then the fall still just didn't really click. So I think those are the two biggest surprises for me, is just what appears to be going on from a staff standpoint, from a team standpoint. Fowler and Greer Holston not being mentioned more by us, not figuring into the situation, because at the end of last year I had Fowler for sure probably in a starting rotation spot for Ole Miss, and then I had Holston being a very valuable person as well, and we're just not seeing that so far, even though it's just 2 games. There's 54 regular season games to go. How good is Tulane? Is there a chance to be Ole Miss will not be 1-4 at the end on Sunday. Tulane's fine. They're okay. They can get a little spunky. They beat George Washington, but it just like this past weekend, Ole Miss played well. They beat Wright State. Ole Miss played like crap. Wright State beat them. Same way next weekend. If they play well, they beat Tulane, but Tulane's good enough to get you if you screw around and make it look like the first 4 or 5 innings on Saturday, which frankly is some of the worst baseball I've seen Ole Miss play in a while. Let's see. Anything else? Fire away if you do. I don't know when a media op we'll get is, by the way. They could give it to us tomorrow, but then with the rain and everything scheduled, I don't know how late they would wait for any change of game time on Tuesday either with Arkansas State, because it's not like Arkansas State's going to spend the night on Monday night. The Red Wolves won't leave Jonesboro, even if they do play the game, until mid-morning or so. So that's not a big deal. Let's see. Last thing. Do I like the intentional walk rule? I don't like it from the standpoint of I think you should have to throw the pitches. I think if you can't throw the pitches, that's your own problem. I think if somebody wants to take a risk while you're throwing the pitches, that's up to them. I mean, one of the coolest moments we've had in the last decade was the Austin Anderson grand slam off the intentional walk. So yeah, make them throw the balls, make them throw the pitches, make them execute, which is the the whole point. If you can't execute, then you don't deserve to do it. Look, I guess it speeds the game up, but it speeds the game up by 45 seconds. I couldn't care less. Let's see. Will they add a game to make up for Wright State? Yeah, I expect them to play another game. Now, will it be Wright State? No, and I have no idea who it will be. But yeah, I still expect Ole Miss, if there's any possibility whatsoever, to play 56 games, even if they have to drop down a level and play a game just to fulfill it and get your pitchers the work that are needed. Did the Saturday game remind you of Tennessee Tech? Well, I mean, they didn't play well. Yeah, I mean, it kind of did look like that first game against Tennessee Tech, if you want to be honest. But, different team, different year. I'm just not making a whole lot of it because they did come back. They did show some fight later. So I'm fine with it. It really, really does not bother me too much on how Saturday went. I don't think it's something where you're having this weird expectation the season's going weird, or that there's anything to necessarily even take from it. They played a baseball game, they lost a baseball game, and you move on to Tuesday or Saturday. So the replay rules didn't bother me at all. Wasn't really a big deal. The more things you can replay, the better. Look, you're already there. I thought the first one they took way too long to do it because either he tagged the bag or he didn't. It wasn't like you were worried about it getting there in time. You knew the situation, so I thought that one just took too long. I don't know what that was about, but otherwise, I like the review stuff. I like the way that they checked it, and I like the way that the coach can kind of, hey, y'all go together, give me a review, and then you come out and you get it done. So the SEC is really taking a step forward in review stuff, and I think it's going to help college baseball, and it has helped college baseball. I had no issue with the review stuff on Saturday at all, even though it just took forever. So, again, we'll do these every Sunday night. It's kind of the plan. So when I get back from New Orleans next Sunday, or either maybe even in the car, we'll figure it out. But I'll get one of these to you next Sunday following Tulane. Hopefully that's after 4 games, maybe just after the 3 against the Green Wave. But again, plenty of coverage at rebelgrove.com. If something happens in the meantime, we'll jump on here. Maybe I'm going to kind of play with doing some of these mobile. We also are still looking into getting the main podcast up on Twitch and adding some interaction elements to it as well. That might be closer than we think it is. So we'll see what the days bring with that. But I really appreciate you guys jumping on a Sunday night. We'll do it again next week, and then we'll do it if anything pops up in the meantime. Take care.